A big topic of debate for the past few years in the Dragon Ball fandom has been the origins of Tien, Tenshinhan, that is, and what his actual heritage is. Is he an Earthling? Is he an alien? Is he a human? How do you qualify or classify Tien? Is Tien an alien? On this edition of Dragon Ball Mythbusters, we're going to get real deep into this, I suppose you can say, myth or story or background on the celestial origins of Tenshinhan, and I'm going to give you a complete and thorough explanation of all of it. You're going to know everything by the time this video ends. Let's do it.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
On the surface, Tenshinhan seems like a pretty regular person. Even though he's very muscular and skilled at the martial arts, there's really nothing abnormal about him except for maybe the fact that he can grow 2 extra arms out of his back, and of course the fact that he has a third eye in the middle of his forehead. Now, the idea of a third eye, whether it be a physical one or one within the brain that's metaphysical, is something that's deeply rooted in Eastern philosophy as well as the occult. It is believed by many philosophers that every mortal is born with a third eye. And the talk is that when you have your third eye opened, it grants you a degree of knowledge, a degree of understanding of the world, and some even believe that the third eye represents psychic powers. I did a Dragon Ball in-depth video where I discussed Goku's pure heart, and in that video I talked about a very similar principle where we are born with a third eye, with a Tenmei, but because of the world sort of negating our belief system and us falling into sin, whether it be being selfish or being stubborn, it ceases our ability to tap into that third eye and unveil the potential within all of us. Now, for years, fans had wondered what the third eye really represented besides it just being a tribute that Toriyama put into, well, 2 different characters, one of them being the main protagonist of a manga that came out 10 years before Dragon Ball, called The Three-Eyed One, written and illustrated by Tezuya Osamu. The main character, Hosuke, is a boy who looks remarkably like Tenshinhan. He's bald, he has a third eye, and most importantly, he is from what is called the Mitsumezoku, the Three-Eyed Clan. More on that later. And the other character being one of the gods from Journey to the West, which is the original story, the Chinese folklore story that Toriyama had based the early portion of Dragon Ball on. Even though we were way past the, I guess you can say, influence of Journey to the West in the majority of the story with Sun Wukong and whatnot, Toriyama still pulled several ideas from Journey to the West even deeper into his writing of the Dragon Ball manga. So he never really gave up being influenced by that story. But obviously it's all rooted in the original sort of mythology behind it. In fact, in an interview with the American Shonen Jump, Toriyama says that it was Tenshinhan, raised by the evil Suru Senin, who lost the ability to use the myriad powers of his third eye for good purposes. So there's always a mysticism and a mystery, occult-like, about the third eye. But back to the question at hand, where did this idea of him being an alien come from? Because regular humans don't have a third eye, but I think a lot of Dragon Ball fans forget that in the early days of Dragon Ball, there were all kinds of very weird creatures that Toriyama would put into his story, such as anthropomorphic animals for one, and obviously mutants and things like that, like Gidan, and all kinds of different creatures that would exist in Dragon Ball's world right there on Earth that didn't seem to be too crazy for the inhabitants. I mean, look at Bouillon, for example. You've got all kinds of weird creatures existing on Earth, furries and whatnot, and nobody even bats an eye, especially in early Dragon Ball. I feel like later on in the series, Toriyama kind of scaled back on the weird animals and made Earth more like a realistic Earth, but they still exist there. They are still there. So the idea of somebody having a third eye really shouldn't be that crazy when you remember just how crazy the Dragon Ball world is. Now, the idea of Tenshinhan being an alien or having celestial origins was not explored whatsoever within the confines of the original 42 volumes of the manga or even in the anime. We got glimpses into Goku and Piccolo's heritage as the series progressed. We found out that Goku and Piccolo are both not of the Earth, but we didn't hear anything about Tenshinhan or any any of the other Z fighters. In fact, the mystery of the parentage of the Z fighters has always been a question that I've personally asked. We see Bulma's parents, but we never see Yamcha's parents, Krillin's parents. Like, where's the family at? Where are these guys' family? I always found that very weird. But when it comes to Tenshinhan, we got an explanation later on, but the problem is what caused confusion is that the explanation is a bit of a contradiction because the guidebooks say different things. Now, obviously, most of you know by now that after Dragon Ball ended its run, there were a number of guidebooks that were released, Daizenshu's and Chozenshu's, that helped explain more of the Dragon Ball universe for the fans who wanted to know more about this universe that Toriyama had created. So even though Toriyama never really commented on the origin of Tenshinhan within the confines of the manga, in Daizenshu 7 and Chozenshu 4, it is stated that Tenshinhan descended from a race of aliens known as the Three-Eyed People, which is an idea that Toriyama directly pulled from the Three-Eyed One manga that came out 10 years earlier, like I explained earlier in this video. But it's not that simple, because in the super exciting guide story volume from 2009, Tenshinhan is listed there as a Chikyujin, otherwise known as an Earthling. I'll explain that in a minute, but as a result of what was said in Chozenshu 4 and Daizenshu 7, which the community has become aware of lately, every time you go online and you see a debate that fans are having about who the strongest Earthling is, Krillin or Tenshinhan, you're bound to find one fan pop in and say, well, wait a minute, Tien's not really an Earthling. He's an alien, so he's disqualified from the competition. And that's not exactly true. It states that Tenshinhan is a descendant of an alien tribe, which means, presumably, that at some point in the past, the alien tribe interbred with humans and created a hybrid species, and that's where Tenshinhan came from this hybrid alien-human bloodline, because it says he's a descendant, but it says that he is of Earth. So that tells me that, and again, this is just hypothetically speaking, that he has alien blood, alien DNA inside of him, but he still counts as an Earthling. Maybe not a full human, but he still counts as an Earthling, just like Gohan. Gohan is a mixture of alien and human hybrid, but he's still a human, right? He's Chi-Chi's kid. Also, you have to remember that just because you are an alien does not mean you don't qualify to be a Chikyujin, because Tenshinhan was, well, raised on Earth and he lives on Earth. And we never saw any storyline within Dragon Ball about his heritage, about his parents. Toriyama chose never to explore that. In fact, Toriyama never even explored the fact that he was an alien within the confines of the manga, but it's mentioned in the guidebooks. Now, the thing about the guidebooks that I've talked about before is that these guidebooks are approved by Toriyama, but it's unclear as to how much Toriyama's involvement in the guidebooks actually is. Some people say he just checks things off and doesn't really care. Others say he's more deeply invested in what's in there, but there are contradictions in guidebooks that I've pointed out throughout the years, but I don't think this is a contradiction at all. I think the debate whether or not Tien is an alien or a human who opened up his third eye, I think the answer is both. He's part human, obviously with alien blood, and perhaps the aliens who are the Three-Eyed Clan, you know, they obviously had three eyes because that's where they're named after, but it's possible that maybe Tenshinhan, when he was born, didn't have that third eye awakened, and maybe through martial arts training he was able to tap into it, which I think makes the most sense to me, especially since we've seen characters like Gohan, obviously human Saiyan hybrids, through training was able to tap into that alien DNA inside of him and unleash his true power. So that makes the most sense to me. So is Tien an alien? No, Tien is not an alien, but he has alien blood in him from generations ago. But at the end of the day, Tenshinhan is still a character that is deeply rooted in Asian mythology and Asian philosophy. Specifically, of course, Journey to the West, which is the original story that Dragon Ball came out of. So always remember that. Thank you so very much for checking out this video. I hope you had a good time watching it. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. punch the notification bell, of course, so you can get all my uploads when they come. And that concludes this edition of Dragon Ball Mythbusters as we lay it out with truthful information about what's really going on in the world of Dragon Ball and try to kill some of the lies that have been spread throughout the years from mistranslations, misinformation, and straight up liars. This one, to me, isn't a huge one, but it's still worth addressing, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thank you. Hope you got something from the video, and I'll catch you down the road.